Okay, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you've already gone through all the first videos in this Fundamentals of HTML chapter, where we introduced what editor we're using, all the basic HTML code tags, how to validate HTML, how to navigate through folders, all kinds of links, stuff like that. Or I'm assuming you already know this stuff. What we're going to start on now is how to style these pages. So I've got my home page, resume page, come on, and about me here. So what I want to do next is style these things up. Let's start here on the resume page because we have a lot of text that we can start styling. Okay, and then let's go back to our code. And let me show you how we used to do this back in the bad old days. So I'm going to click on resume.html. It used to be that if we wanted something bolded, like let's say, for example, I want to bold the link of the page that I'm on. So since I'm on resume, I want to bold resume. Well, we would use this B tag or a strong tag. So let me move this to the back so you can see. All right, so I've got my A and my B tag is fully nested or encapsulated by the A. So that's one of our rules we learned earlier about nesting. So if B starts inside of A, B has to end before A ends, which it does, and we're good. So let's save that. Go back here, refresh, so you can see resume is now bolded. Oh, it looks like I've got an extra space right there I need to get rid of. No, actually I don't. That's a mistake. It's right there. Oh, it's because I broke this out in a couple lines. When I'm going to violate my own rule here and keep all this on the same line simply for the reason of eliminating that little extra space right there. Okay, but we don't do this anymore. This is how we used to do it, and there's a bunch of tags like an I tag or emphasis tag to make it italicized, a U tag to make it underlined. But the problem is that it creates the possibility for inconsistencies across your site, and we want a consistent look and feel to make it as easy to navigate and use and interpret and digest for our consumers or readers as possible. So what we're going to do instead is learn how to use cascading style sheets or CSS. We're going to start by putting the CSS right up here in the head, which we typically don't do, but it's easier to learn. But it's easier to start out learning that way. And then we're going to move our CSS into a separate file, so you can see both techniques. Anyway, for now, come up here after title and enter down a line, and put the tag style. So we're about to define a style that will be applied to some content on the page. So since it's information about the page, it goes up here in the head tag rather than the body, although I can actually use this style tag in the body. So here in style, what we're going to do is now, because we're inside a style tag, we're now going to be writing CSS code here embedded in the HTML. But CSS has its own format. It's not the same as HTML. But we use this style tag as something to designate that this is where the CSS code is going to go. So to begin, let's create, before I bold, let's say I don't want what do I do? Let me pick something. All right, here's my name. No, what am I going to do? All right, let's start by changing all the text on this page. I don't like Times New Roman. It's great for printed material. On computer screens, we prefer sans serif fonts. Sans means none, and serif means the little curlies on the end of the lines. So here's what we're going to do. We want to change the font for the entire page to Arial or Verdana, one of those traditional typical fonts. So we're going to start by learning how to create styles by overriding existing HTML elements. So we start by picking an element we want to override a style for, and I'm going to choose body because body applies to all the content on the page. Everything on our entire page is in between the opening and closing body tags. So I'm going to write the word body and then a curly brace and enter that down. So when I do it this way, body must, right here we have to put the name of an existing HTML element, of one that actually exists somewhere. Then open and close the curly brace, and inside here we're going to have a bunch of attribute value pairs. So an example attribute is font family. Now notice, as soon as I started typing, by the way, it brings me up a list of all attribute options. These are all the different style options that start with an F or have an F in them somewhere that I can use. So font, there it is. I'm just going to enter on that. After the attribute, we always have a colon, and then the value comes next. Let's make it Arial. And notice I have this, it brings up an option here, Arial, comma, Helvetica, comma, sans serif. Hit enter, and then semicolon. So it's always a colon between the attribute and value, and a semicolon after the value. Here, this is the name of two different fonts. Now, font style definitions typically exist on the computer of the person who has downloaded your web page. So what's going to happen is their browser, if they're using Chrome, is going to look in a special folder for fonts and look for one called Arial. If it can't find it, it'll look for one called Helvetica. Everybody's machine has these two, but if for some crazy reason they've deleted those fonts and they don't have them, it'll look for any font that qualifies as a sans serif font, so no curlies on it. So when we create styles by overriding an HTML element's built-in style, then there's nothing else we have to do. It's simply going to look for any tag called body and apply this style to the body. So let's save that, go back here to the site, refresh it. There we go. All of our font is now Arial. So let's take it a step further. I want to make my font a little less dark, or maybe a little bit smaller. Let's do that. Let's change next. Now, because I've got my attribute, colon, value, semicolon, now I can enter down a line and enter something else like font size. And let's make it 14 pixels, 14 px. Now notice I have some options here. 14, I can actually use PC, PT, or PX. I like pixel. I'm just used to it. It's easier for me to understand. Semicolon. So once again, I've got an attribute, colon, value, semicolon. And as long as I have a semicolon after each of them, I can continue to put as many attribute value pairs as I want to in a row. So let's save this one next. Maybe it's already size 14 font. Nope, there we go. That made it smaller. That looks good. Actually, maybe I'm going to go with 15 just to make it slightly bigger and see how that looks. That might be exactly what we had before. I can't remember. Let's do another one. Let's change the color of the font. Why is it not font-color? Because CSS has evolved over time, just like HTML. And in the early days of CSS, someone made it color. Everyone got used to it, and then they never changed it. So it's just color. A few ways I can do color. I can type in a name and see how it gives me a list here. Royal blue, actually, I like that. Let's try that one out. Semicolon, save. I like code, Visual Studio Code, because it gives me a little preview of what that's going to be. And this right here is cool too. It has this built-in color picker using this format, RGB, and the tones of red, yellow, and red, green, and blue that go in to create that color. So anyway, that's kind of awesome. So here's this. This is the second way you can define a color besides the name, and this is obviously much more precise than just putting a name is. But let's save that, refresh it. There we go. All my text is that blue. I don't like that. Let me show you one more way. Another common technique is to use a hexadecimal code. All hexadecimal codes start with a pound sign and then have some combination of 6 numbers or letters. And letters can only be A through F, but it can use all numbers 0 through 9. So I'm going to do a shade of gray, and all zeros is the darkest. That's black. So then it goes 1s is slightly less black, up to 9s is a gray, and then it goes to A, don't ask me why, after that is the lighter shade of gray, and then B, C, D, E, F is white. All F's is white. So you can see it previewing right there next to it. Let's change this to 6s. There we go. That's fairly gray, as you can see that preview right there. And look, now it'll use the hexadecimal code format as I go through choosing what color I want. So here we go. Let's use that one. This is one reason why I like code over Sublime Text and what's the other one we were using? Brackets, because of this feature right here. So refresh. You can see it's not black. It's kind of that darker shade of gray. Okay, cool. Let's overwrite something else. Okay, I want you to pick another element. We've got a few options here. We've got A. We're going to not do image for now, but we've got H4, P-O-L-L-I-U-L. I want you to pick one more element and make a style for it using these things we've learned so far. So pause it and see if you can do that. Okay, I'm assuming you've taken a shot. I'm now going to space down a couple lines. And if you weren't sure how to do it, sorry, I should have explained this part. You can add as many of these styles as you want in the same style tag simply by separating it by a space. So let's adjust. Let's do all LIs. So let's say our list items we want to be a little bit smaller than everything else. And let's italicize them. So LI, let's make the font size 14px, and we're going to say font style, there we go, italic. Okay, semicolon, let's save that, see if it works. Cool, there we go, all of our LIs are now italicized. Let's change links to be a different color. Let's make one for A then. And rather than have the visited to be purple, let's just make all links. I kind of like the navy. It's too close to what we had before. What about, there we go, this dark maroon color, we'll go with that. Okay, so we'll use the RGB. There we go, all of our links are in that red. Okay, so let's stop right here. We've introduced you to CSS, the style tag, and overriding existing HTML element styles.